Hey, good evening, everybody. This is Jeff with Junior Hockey Advisor. Let's get Bloomer on so we can talk a little hockey. There you are. How you doing, Mike?
What's going on, everyone?
I did it again. I got to put you on the other side. There we go. All right, folks. It is another night to talk hockey. It's Wednesday night. And once again, this is Junior Hockey Advisor. I'm Jeff Colson. That's Mike Bloom. And tonight, it's open forum for any questions you have. We're also going to talk a little bit about we'll talk a little bit about the USHL. We'll talk a little bit about the NAHL and the playoffs and what's going on there. We'll get on the discussion group and talk about a couple of things that Mike and I were just discussing about some issues that are going on with the conversations in the discussion group. And we're going to talk goalies. We'll get some goalie conversation going on. If that sounds good to you, let's get rolling. Mike, busy week for you. Been on the ice a lot. You've been running around a lot. You ready to get into a conversation, or you got to get your mind right first? You got to do some like Zen stuff or something.
As soon as I sit in the saddle here, I'm ready to rip.
It doesn't sound right. Sounds like you got an issue eating beans.
Why?
Think of what you just said.
Ready to rip. Yeah, no, it has been busy though. You know, we're getting to the end of the school year for the hockey academy, and you know, some of those skates can really turn into the dog days for a lot of these kids and even us as coaches when, you know, all their seasons are over and we're just trying to keep them on the ice training and coming up with fresh ideas to get them to want to compete and kind of get through those sessions. So we got about, you know, tomorrow and then another 2 weeks of it. And it's like, oh my God.
I was just having a conversation yesterday with a fairly prominent advisor that you know and I know, and we both work with and respect. And we were talking about the old days when I owned an academy here in Rochester, New York. And, we started off pretty humble, and then it grew, and we got quite a few students in it. And the first year, we wow, we've got 2 hours of ice a day. We got to have 4 instructors on the ice, and we'll have stations. And by the 4th year, is this time of year, it was like, well, we've got an optional 30 minutes of ice. If anybody wants to go out, we got an instructor out there that'll work with you. Only because, you know, we overstaffed it and over-iced it, and it was just too much. Kids were just like, do we really got to put our skates back on? My skates are still wet from last night, Coach. I got practice tonight too, and we go into playoffs on Friday night, and you're like, okay, we started to get it. We started to really, really back off on how much ice kids were on, just because they, there was no bang in the buck anymore. You know, we had to really change how we thought about it, and we started adding more one-on-one stuff twice a week versus group stuff 4 days a week, or 5 days a week. So just, it's one of those things. They get burned out if you try to go, a full 8 months with them, or whatever your academic calendar is there,
Yeah. The nice part is now that a lot of the junior teams have finished their seasons, a lot of the kids are back home themselves. So we've been having some NAHL guys coming out and NCDC and things like that. So NA3 guys. So, the U18 AAA guys and the U16 AAA guys that are a part of our school, it's nice for them to have to go against those guys now and kind of get pushed a little bit outside of the normal guys they go against in these different drills. So that's helped, but still, it's like, this is such a long season for them to keep being on the ice, working 4 days a week and whatnot. So yeah, it's a grind.
Not even a long season for them. It's a long season for you. It's like getting on the ice every single day. I don't miss the days. I'm only 4 or 5 years removed from doing this, but you know, teaching private lessons and doing an academy. I would go on the ice early in the day with the academy. Then we would teach lessons between 3 and 5, and then we'd have one or the junior practice fell in there about 2:00. So I would go on for the skills session with the academy, then run a junior practice, then do private lessons for 2 hours, and then a youth practice sometime in the night, kind of like what you're doing right now. And
Yeah.
I tell you what, when the season was over, I would sleep for a week. I mean, just wouldn't even get out of bed. Just that's it, done. It was a lot. It was a lot. You start off the year wearing you know, I forget what Bauer sizes are. They're like 2 sizes smaller than my my street shoes, but I wear a street shoes of 12. So I'd start off the season at a 12. I'm using street shoes because it's easier to reference. By the end of the season, I was wearing a 14. And over the summer they'd get back to 12s, and they'd flatten out and getting all big and hard. And just terrible, man, terrible.
Well, I have a funny story about that. So I just had gotten new skates through, the team we work for. And, I got sized and all of that stuff at one of the local hockey stores here where they scan your foot and all that other stuff. So I get these skates, and because I'm on the ice so often, like now at this point in the year, when I get out of bed in the morning, I can barely even walk on like my actual feet. And so I've, figured out that you can go get them bumped out, you can get them stretched, you can get all these different things done. So I'm taking them back and forth to this hockey, Pure Hockey. We don't have any sponsors, but if they ever want to, we'll give them a plug here. But I go to Pure Hockey, and this guy is like working on my skates like for 3 weeks, trying to get these things in a good spot or whatever. And he's like, hey, we just got this new technology in where we can scan your foot again and, just kind of see what we're dealing with. Maybe this isn't the right Bauer skate for you. So we go and do it again. And at the sizing and the fit that I'm in that they told me a year ago was fit 2. And now when they do the skate scan and everything, I'm in a fit 3. So the skates that I have, there's nothing they're going to be able to do for them to get them to fit my feet correctly. So the reality is I need to get new skates. And I guess the current Bauer model is more narrow, and that's how they made them. And they've had a ton of complaints and whatnot. So the reality is I got to wait for the newest model of Bauers to come out, whenever that is, where they've kind of corrected the issue. But my feet are so screwed up now from being in them so often that literally walking around in my shoes or barefoot or whatever is just ridiculously painful.
I switched sponsors. Our program was sponsored by Bauer, our sticks, skates, helmets, gloves. And I switched sponsors over to CCM because it was a wider skate for me. I didn't tell anybody that, but that's the whole reason we switched from Bauer to CCM is I couldn't fit in the Bauer skates. They run on very narrow and a very high arch system. And
right.
For me, I don't have flat feet, but I have a wider foot. And so we went over to CCM just so I could get skates that would fit me. I wouldn't tell anybody that. So, all right, got a lot of people there. Please say hi. Please tell us who you are. Please check in. Got questions? Feel free to throw the question up so we can jump on the question, and let us know where you're at. It'd be nice to know who's watching and where you're at. Like usual, group's still growing and growing kind of consistently there. So we will jump in. Hey, I want to start off with the conversation we had. For everybody that's listening and watching, it seems like to us from this end, and Mike, please feel free to correct me if I misquote you here, but it seems like to us that we spend a lot of time covering the same topic over and over. And I get it. We were 1,000 people, and now we're getting close to 13,000 people on one platform, or 10,000 people over on another platform. These groups are getting bigger and bigger. But is there a better way for us to actually manage some of these topics that we talk about? I mean, all this stuff is available on YouTube. They're available on our Facebook page, but it doesn't seem to be clicking with a lot of people. Now, I'll give you an example. We talk all the time about what league is, where leagues' relevance are, where they fit. We compare leagues to each other. We talk about tier 1 versus tier 2 versus tier 3. We talk about where the BCHL is. And we're talking about these different issues. But it's like 3 days later, the same questions come up again Is there a better way? Is there anything, throw it in your comments, DM us, let us know what we can do to maybe put information in a different format or a better format that people can start, it's not that we don't want to talk about this stuff. That's all we do is talk about this stuff. We would talk about this stuff 24 hours a day, but I feel some of you might think that we get stuck on like a record that's skipping back. For those of you that are old enough to remember what an LP is or a record, they used to skip times to stay in the one groove. Are we in that situation right now, or do you feel like that? And if so, we're just looking for a way to break out and get information more consistently. Mike, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it's always something where, in my opinion, I think people join our discussion group, and before looking through any of the material or the threads that have happened previous on that page, they join it and then they just jump on and ask their question to the group, hoping for a ton of answers. And they're not realizing that that question was just asked, and they could have looked at that thread and kind of got a lot of that information already. So I know, just seeing some of the comments that go, like, get added to those threads from people who have been members for a long time, they're fatigued by seeing the same question all the time. And they kind of have like a biting remark when they finally comment back and whatnot, which probably isn't helpful to the person asking the question. But at the same time, we're seeing the same questions over and over again. And everybody always wants us or people to be comparing this league versus that league and whatever else. And, we spend a lot of time not only just sharing the information, because the information will show you the answers, rather than, my opinion, your opinion, somebody else's, opinion and whatnot. But I also think, I say it a lot, the leagues themselves are tough to compare, because there's different situations within a particular organization within a league that makes it different than maybe even, like, if you're in a great organization for a lesser league that's better than a bad organization at maybe the league higher, like, that's a conversation to be had. If you say, like, well, this league is better, it may, from a league perspective, be better, but your situation on a particular team within that league may not lead to the same result as all the rest of the teams in that league. So being in a better situation in a different league might be the better option for you. So It comes down to more than just what league is better type of deal.
Yeah, and the perfect example for that is if you're playing in the KIJHL out west in Western Canada, or if you're playing in the Ontario area in the Greater Ontario Junior Hockey League, which are both considered lower level. They're below the CJHL. That's perfectly fine. A lot of young players move up, from that league all the way up to the WHL. They move up. I'm talking about the KIJHL. They move into the BC. They move into the AJ. SJ, they play in a lot of those leagues out there. Now, being an 18-year-old in that league is a lot different than being a 20-year-old in that league, or a 17-year-old in that league versus being a 20-year-old. They're two different things. So yes, some of these lower leagues have purpose. You see a lot of development coming out of some of those junior B leagues, and they're designed for younger players to be able to jump right up. And so, there's some great managed and great programs in the Greater Ontario Junior Hockey League. I frequently deal with a couple of them, and I like that league. It just isn't a league that will put a ton of players into the USHL. Occasionally you'll see a kid, and he's usually young, and they'll rarely see a kid go to the NAHL out of that league, because if you're older in that league, it's usually you get passed by the younger players. The younger players will make a move, but the older players don't seem to statistically move as much from that league. But your point's made, Mike, and I believe that you're spot on. You really have to know the leagues and know what you're looking for in each league, and the purpose of the leagues. Look, everything is so specific to you have to look to cater when you're dealing with junior hockey. All right, let's just say you're talking about the ascension up from U16s, U15, U16 up. Hey, look, if you go the prep route, that's a specialty in itself, and it's going to take you in a different direction. And then there's choices inside of the prep world on where you go. Do I go to a Culver? Do I go to a Shattuck? Do I go to New England? Do I go to Albany? There's so many different choices of where to play, and they all seem to feature positives and negatives for players that are trying to ascend up into college hockey. And so when you're looking at this whole thing and trying to put it all together, you have to really, and somebody used the phrase, and I've been using this phrase for years, it's about reverse engineering. You got to look at where you want to be and then back up and say, okay, from there, what was the step right before that? What was the step right before that? So if you're sitting at U15 and you're in Western Canada, or you're playing in Arizona, and you're like, what do I have to do? Where should I go next? Before I do that, I would go all the way to the very top, not in the D1 ranks or the D3 ranks, and figure out where kids are going to get there. Do you have a favorite school or favorite college? Look at that favorite college and figure out where their roster came from. Then step back and say, okay, it seems like they get a lot of players from this league. Okay, look at those players and see where they were before they went to that junior league. Where did they come from there? Now, of course, if you're looking at the Michigans and the Notre Dames, and you're looking at all those types of schools, the North Dakotas, the Northeasterns of the world, the Boston College and the BUs, you're going to see a lot of things that are very, very, very similar. And that'd be the National Development Program, because national development kids tend to go to the major schools, with little exception. You very rarely see them not at one of the big schools and playing for one of the big time programs. So I know I went off a little bit there. Mike, got anything to add to that before we jump into a couple comments and questions?
No, let's jump in and let's talk with the viewers.
Let's talk with the viewers. All right, we're gonna give her time. We're gonna give her time. I don't know why I'm doing this though. Lori says, my son has an issue with his skates too narrow. Watching from your favorite state, Ohio. I don't have a problem with Ohio. I figured the sewage from the property I'm on right now has to drain somewhere. So, it's south of us. So that's good. And the other thing too, is it's the Ohio Turnpike is great to drive right through. I don't have to stop and talk to anybody, just right through. So I really don't have hey, did you notice what I'm wearing? Can you see the
I see the Michigan and the Jumpman.
Yeah, I thought I'd throw that on just for Lori tonight, so she'd feel right at home. So in all seriousness,
what they say about Ohio when you live in Michigan is that Ohio is Michigan's dingleberry.
Wow. Now see, I don't have a button to edit anything you say. I don't have that little. Okay, let's see what Dave's did. Dave's been hot lately. Let's see what he's got. A lot of this information is on the guides, but I don't think people are aware of the guides, and they need to be promoted better. So the guides are real simple. You go to our Facebook discussion page. Up at the top, it says guides. You click on guides, and it's got a lot of the topics broken down for you, so you can do that. And we update it quarterly. It's not like it gets updated every week. There is some effort into cutting everything up and putting them in the guide area, but most of our topics are covered in the guide stuff, except for the last few months. So Dave wants to host the show now. Says the better question should be, what league is best for my player and goals? People forget that sometimes making a higher league means riding the bench or a healthy scratch. Players don't get better by not playing. I agree to that to an extent, but you go to college, you're going to sit the bench if you're a freshman in 90% of the situations, unless you're coming out of the National Development Program and you're going to be a first-round draft pick. All players, and I can't honestly even say that if you look at the players that on the team that Mike and I represent, there's a lot of kids that their first year in the program, they are now carrying the team. Our captain, was a minimal player last season and the year before. How many years has he been there now? Is this his third or second?
Third
year. First year, limited play. So I'm not sure that, because juniors, you're starting to get 5 days of ice, Monday through Friday of ice, and you got hours on there and you're competing against the best in the nation at the tier 2 level. I'm not sure. And when you get to D3 and D1 college, it's the same way. I don't think that works the same way as it might work in some lower level junior leagues, because being on a NAHL roster and working your way up does take at least a year at time. Mike, you may agree or disagree. What do you think?
Well, yeah, I would say when it comes to junior hockey, you want to be able to play on the highest level you can. When it comes to like youth hockey, though, that's where, if you're riding the pine and not playing, and you're playing on a AAA team, you're not getting anything out of that. So
Right.
maybe playing on a top AA team, like I coach AA, so we have that conversation all the time. But if you're able to play and contribute and perform at a high level, you're going to have way more doors open for you. But if you're at the middle to bottom of a roster there, and you're playing for a AAA team that's not highly ranked and whatnot, that's when that whole debate of, is it better to play all the time and be in all the scenarios and carry the team, or struggle for ice time and probably lose confidence and things like that. When you're at junior hockey and you're playing all the time, and you're like doing hockey as a career at that point, as long as you're young, like if you're in an age out situation, then yeah, maybe going down a league and being all the guy and playing all the time is a better situation. But if you're younger, you're just going to have to buy some time and keep developing and get stronger and learn the systems and all that stuff. So yeah, that's kind of how it works.
Yeah, I want to get onto a couple of the topics that are on the board. One is, I was reading one of the comments that came up across. A person was actually listing off, and I'm going to pick on the NCDC. I shouldn't say pick on. I'm going to feature them in this conversation. The conversation in the group was about how many commitments different leagues put in. Somebody posted, there's a guy out there that posts D1 commits, and he breaks it down from where they came from, and it's fairly accurate. It gets it off of the USC, not the USCHO, the College Hockey Inc. site. The only problem with that is they're counting them after they get to college, and so they're counting the freshmen there and the sophomores there and the juniors there, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with looking at that list, but I just want people to understand that when you look at a list of where players committed from, it doesn't necessarily give you a true picture of things. For example, the NCDC has a list of where players, where their commitment list, and that commitment list shows players. And I'm going to pull that up. I'm just going to show everybody what I'm looking at here if I can. Let's go share screen. Let's jump on that one. Throw that up. So I'm looking at this list. Is that coming up, Mike?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay. So this is the list that was posted on our site. And this is the NCDC 23-24 level commits. Okay. And right off the bat, they're one of the few that does this for a quote unquote tier 2 league. You can see that it's D3, 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 D3. And then the D1s listed here, there's a few. Now, what's interesting is the whole year for them. If you look at this list, they've got D1, 1, 2, and then they've got 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And I'm just doing a quick count, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. So we're already at 17, and we'll see where we get to. So we're at 17 there. Let's just go over and jump to, and while I'm doing it, I'm going to change this back to here. Hey, look at that. That's really cool. I'm going to jump over and open another screen up, and I'm going to look at the College Hockey Inc. and see what College Hockey Inc. has them listed for, because I think you're going to see that number is going to be different. And what I mean by different, I think it's going to be less. And what do you see on your screen right now, Mike?
I see you and I, and then still the last list that you pulled up from the NCDC site.
Okay, so I'll get rid of that list there, just you and I, and then I'll open that up again. And then I'll go to college commitments. There we go. Okay, so if I go to this list, this is College Hockey Inc. You go into commitments. It shows you everything right here. Now, what's interesting about this is I can go to current team, and I can pull up as soon as it catches up to me. I got spinnies going on right now, which is bad. The only way I can do it is if it sorts for me. And right now it doesn't want to sort. So let me see if I can reboot this real quick and get it to sort for us. Okay, there we go. So now I've got it, current team. You see USA Hockey's development program. That's all those USAs. Then it goes right into the USHL and list them all. All these teams are on the left-hand side of the column, and these are the commitments. They're no longer by date, they're by league and by team. So once I get through the USHL, you're going to see I'm going to jump right into the NAHL, the North American Hockey League, because that's the second largest contributor here. And then I'll go from the NAHL into, pretty soon here, I'll get into the BCHL. And I'm still looking for the league, and I'll get to it eventually here. It's BCHL, and still in BCHL. And then I think I'll jump into getting close to the end here. Okay, now I'm into the AJ, which is the next biggest contributor. And then it won't go long until I start getting into the both the Saskatchewan and Manitoba. So I'm looking for Buffalo Junior Sabres are the OJHL. Still looking for a team to start off my list of players in the NCDC. Okay, right there it is, the Islanders. So if I start right with the Islanders there and count down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Oh, no, it doesn't. It's 8. Okay, can you see that, Mike?
Yep.
From the Islanders down to South Shore. So it's Islanders is first. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. They've only got 8, and then it starts going into Culver, and then you see the prep schools, and it goes into U18. So why is that important, and why am I showing you that? Well, what was that other list? What did it say on that other list? It said, 17 plus kids?
Yeah.
That were committed? Okay. But the official list is 8. So what is the magic that they're using there, and why is that an incorrect list?
Because there were kids that were committed before they played in that league that they're taking credit for as if they committed from playing in the NCDC, not committing when they were playing AAA elsewhere, or in some cases juniors elsewhere.
Yeah, and I'm picking on the NCDC. They're not the only league that does this. Okay, this happens in many, many leagues out there. This was just one that was open today, and there was posted as, oh, see, look at all their commitments. Okay, let's back up a little bit there and actually look at where those kids were committed at. Most of those kids were prep kids. Most of those kids were prep kids that played a year or two of prep, then jumped into the NCDC. It's most of those kids are East Coast kids, and they're committed to a D1 school on the East Coast, and they want to stay home. They don't want to go out to Texas, or they don't want to go out to Michigan, or they don't want to go anywhere else to play in another league. They want to stay close to home. They've already got their commitment. And so that's how that works. And that's why, or they got a coach at one of the Division I programs say, hey, we want to watch you stay local so we can watch you play more. Okay. I've had players like that. I've had coaches ask players that I've coached before if they'll stay at local when they play juniors. In fact, I've had kids on my team that are playing on my team because when they committed to the D1 program, they wanted him to play in the league that kept him close where they could watch him more. So that's perfectly fine. But that number, that league has got a habit of doing that, like others do too. This is not just one. For example, during the pandemic, they ran the bubble down there, which was very unique and was very effective. They ran a bubble down in Florida where they had a resort. Basically, they took over the resort. All the teams stayed in one area, and they played their league down there, and they continued through during the pandemic. Well, what was interesting was when the NHL draft came around, all of a sudden the NCDC is proclaiming that they've got 3 or 4 NHL draft picks. It's like, holy smokes, how the hell did that happen? Well, what it was is they had prep kids that their prep school program completely shut down, and they jumped to the NCDC for 3 or 4 10 games. All of them were very, very short handful of games, but they'd jump down and play in that bubble for the month or the month and a half that they could, and they got games in. So did the NCDC actually have kids long enough to develop them that they get credit for them? Absolutely not. But they took the credit for it. So I don't agree with any league doing this. I think this is something that all leagues have a problem with. What do you think, Mike?
Yeah, I think where that really comes in handy to know is when you're a player and you're trying to compare leagues of where should I go? Is the NA better than the NCDC? Like, what should I do? If you don't have a Division 1 or Division 3 commitment, you really need to know, if I go into the NCDC and they commit, 10 kids to D1 or less, well, that might not help me become a Division 1 hockey player if I go and play in that league, unless I go there for a year and then I go to the NAHL, or I am able to kind of advance out of that league somewhere else. If I've got more time to, play in that league for a year and get better and stronger and advance out, well, then D1 becomes more of an opportunity for me. If I think that's my ticket, you're probably going to be a little bit disappointed in the end when you're not getting that Division 1 scholarship, because that league isn't pumping players to D1, out of it.
Fully agree with what you said. Folks, if you got a question, throw it up on the screen. We go feast or famine the last 2 weeks in a row. I couldn't get to all the questions, and this week we're running a little slow. So if you've got a question, throw it on. We've got plenty of time to look at it. And, just keep words simple for us. 1 syllable, preferably. 2 is okay. You're getting those 3-syllable words, you're getting a little above us, and we'll have to actually, pull up another screen and pull up a dictionary to look up the words. So, and I say that more for the 40-plus-year-old that's wearing his hat backwards on the other screen, not the guy sitting here.
At least it wasn't my Western Michigan diploma.
Well, I thought that kind of diploma got used the first time you had to go to the bathroom after you graduated.
Yeah, might have.
Okay. What's going on in the NAHL? Tell me some things going on in the NAHL right now.
Well, we've got kids. We've got teams that have won their division and have now advanced to Blaine. So this is like the Final Four, and it's best on best. So this is where each division gets to, try to see who the top division is and kind of have, their say of bragging rights for the year. So you got, let's see, you've got Anchorage that made it out of their division. They're going to match up against Lone Star. You've got Minot made it out of their division. They're going to match up against Maryland. So it's best of 3, or I should say is that how it's said? It's best of, yes.
First round's best of 3.
And then,
so the first matchup, and then the 2 teams that win that best of 3, they play a one game national championship. So it's a unique way of doing it, but the reason they got it set up the way they do is the best of 3, it will end on a certain day, and then you can put a championship game right, a day after that. It's actually 2 days after that. So if you finish your first round in only 2 games, you get an extra day of rest, right, while the other bracket is still going for a day playing their 3rd game. But the national championship game is already set in stone. You know exactly when that game's going to be. They can't do a best of 3 again, because then people with hotels. Can you imagine having to stay, a week and a half to pull that off? And 6 games in a week and a half would be just killer on the body. So I think it's the best they can do. I think it's the best structure in the best format. Some would argue that maybe even the first round should just be a 1 game, and then they play a national championship of 1 game. The only problem with that is, man, that's a lot of travel if you're the team that only gets 1 game in. Right. If you're going to go to the national championships, you might as well get that best of 3 series, and with a chance, even if you lose big in that first round, at least you got a shot to come back and make it up in that 2nd game and possibly 3rd game. So I think it's a good format. I don't have any problem at all with the way that works. There's not a budget at the tier 2 level to do 5-game series in each round. They've already done that. I mean, it's a brutal process if you think about it. Now, Lone Star, who we're affiliated with, actually got a bye because they were the first team overall in that first bracket. But if you look at that bracket, the teams that had to start off in the playoffs, they had to play a full round. Best of 3 or best of 5 in that first round?
Best of 3.
Okay.
I think.
Then you have to turn around.
I'm getting it all screwed up myself. I think it's best of 3.
Yeah. So then you've got to turn around and do it again at the Lone Star's first round. Then they got to play in the divisional championship round, and then from the divisional championship round, then you go to Blaine. This is like NHL style playoffs of the amount of games you get. It's not quite that bad, but it is pretty bad. So
I think in the
I like
divisional rounds, you have to win 3 games. So that's best of 5. And then this is best of 3.
Well, that's the divisional championship round. I meant the first round. Isn't the first round just 3 games? The best of 3, and then you go into the best of 5. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
We're all on the same
It's all
page.
new
There's just
this year because now they've got
Yeah.
buys for the first round or whatever. So I get that in the USHL all mixed up with best of 3.
And just think next year with 682 teams, they're going to start. We're going to start in March on the playoffs, and it won't get done until Christmas the next year. Holy smokes! A lot of teams. Okay, so that gives you a little bit. All these teams are on. If they're not leaving today, they're going to. Well, I don't know what Alaska does. They're flying, and I hope they don't take the dog sleds. That'll take them a little longer. But if they do fly, they probably will leave today or tomorrow. Most of the teams are, Minot, it's a little jaunt. It's only a few hours for them. That's not bad. Maryland's probably on the road first thing in the morning. I think Lone Star will get on the road sometime tomorrow, and they'll get in town. They'll get a practice in, and they'll get ready to play. So if you have never been up to Blaine for this whole championship round, these teams usually, now I can't speak for Alaska, Maryland traveled really well the last time I saw them. Lone Star will travel well. When I mean travel well, they'll bring fans, and I would assume that Minot, like Aberdeen, is going to have just a huge group out there.
Yeah.
And what's interesting is these teams that have been there before and kind of been there and done that. There's like a state park right in front of, or a county park right in front of the rink. In fact, the rink might be on that property, but there's pavilions out there right in front of the rink. So the tailgating starts 4 or 5 hours before the game. And, when my son was playing in the last time that Shreveport won it a few years ago, did I say that he was on the national championship team with Shreveport a couple years ago? Did I mention that?
Yeah, only every episode.
That's not true. That's not true at all. Don't try to pull that one on me. But this as a family, that was a new experience to be there as a parent, because normally I'm parking, dashing right in, going into the coach's room, getting my free peanut M&Ms, sitting down, putting all my notes together. I don't pay attention to what's going on with the fans at all. But holy smokes, Pavilion A has got all the Shreveport people, and there's hundreds. Pavilion B has got all the Aberdeen people, and there's hundreds. And then it's a mad dash because it's open seating on what group is going to get in and commandeer the best place for their fan base, So you can see people like putting together these little running groups to dash up and get in the building as fast as they can. And they literally go there and stake out their area. Aberdeen, I believe, had like that yellow caution tape that they put up for their fans. Somebody got in there as quick as they could and like put the tape up so they could all go into the one area. It was pretty fun, but it's a great experience. If you haven't been up there for the national championships for the NAHL, it's a wonderful experience. You're going to enjoy it if you get a chance to go.
Yeah. So I think the format is they play Friday, Saturday, and then if needed Sunday, and they play back to back. So I think Lone Star in Anchorage are the first team each night, and then Minot in Maryland are right after. So it's pretty cool to be able to see all 4 of those teams. You go there and watch the first game and then stick around for the second. You're going to see really good hockey. And, all of the teams to get to where they are now had difficult series to get there. So it'll be interesting to see who's banged up and, kind of leaking oil at this point, getting in. And, if they're the same team that they were even a couple weeks ago, how
they're all banged up.
Yeah,
I'll tell you right now, they're all banged up. Yeah, there's no team that's that there's not a lot of ouchies on. You'll watch practices and you'll see some guys that'll go out there and they're on the ice for 5 minutes, 10 minutes. They just see if they can shoot the puck. They can see if they can stride, and then they're back off the ice, getting rehabbed because players will play through pain. They might not play through an injury, but they'll play through play through pain. And you'll see it there. There's guys that are running purely on adrenaline, and that's the part that's really, really just fascinated about our sport in general, but you'll definitely see banged up teams. This is duct tape time of year.
Yeah.
Coaches are trying to do everything they can to keep things together and keep things as normal as possible. And it gets tough. It gets tough this time of year.
I like to kind of, for those who aren't as like into the know of the NA, like every division kind of has like its own like uniqueness about it. And a lot of people know the South Division and being a little bit heavier and more physical and things like that. So when they get to this point in the year, it's kind of cool to see like which division and the style of play that they typically run at, like what's going to be what it takes to win it all. We know the South, historically has won a lot of these championships in like the last 10 to 15 years. It's pretty much a team from the South, but the Central is kind of, a lot of skill, speed, things like that, which can, that can win, it definitely can win. And the way some of the, like Maryland obviously has had a ton of success, and they're kind of like one of the premier programs now in the NAHL every year. So it's like their style of play, and they're well coached, and it's just kind of cool to, see what is going to be the style of play that tips the scale in their favor, because it is unique. It's not like, you get to this point and everyone's kind of the same. They have like a way they play that'll kind of sort itself out as we go through these games to see, who got it right.
Yeah, everything you say is true, and I'll throw something else on there. This, in my opinion, the first and foremost, most important piece of this is who has the hot hand in net.
Yeah.
You're gonna see a team that can steal a victory here or there because they've got a hot hand in net. And once again, going back to the experience as a family member, not as a coach, not as a player development guy in the league, but as a family member. When we went through this, the Shreveport's second string goalie got into a game for whatever reason early in the playoffs, and he was playing ahead of a guy that was an NHL draft pick, but he got a hot hand, and they never pulled him out. He played all the way through, and that's how hockey works. You'd think they would have went back to a guy that's got this huge potential, and I'm talking potential that the first time up for the showcase in Blaine in the fall, they packed the biggest arena at Blaine just to see the kid. And when I say packed, every program had, every NHL program had 3-4 people there watching the game. You couldn't find a place to sit to watch this kid play, but he didn't play in the playoffs because the other goalie got hotter.
Yeah.
And the other goalie didn't have the same resume. So this is goaltending is extremely important this time of year, and you're not going to win it with a goalie that's not hot. So one or two of these goalies are going to stand on their heads, and that's probably what's going to get them to the championship.
It's a good point. They actually on the NHL network on the radio show today, they were talking about just how crazy it is that Edmonton, if you guys are following the NHL series, is decided to bench Skinner and play Calvin Pickard instead, who's like technically their third string goalie in the playoffs yesterday, and they ended up winning the game. But they were saying like hockey's the only sport where you could do something like this. Like if you're in the MLB playoffs, you're not going to bring a pitcher up from AAA and say, we got the biggest game ahead of us, and we're going to play one of our AAA pitchers, in this environment, and hope that that's the spark that we need to win this game. You're not going to. I don't follow the NBA, but they use the NBA as an example, and they're like, you're not going to bring a point guard up from the G League and say, we're going to put the ball in your hands the whole game, to try to help us win this game. Like hockey is literally the only sport. You're not going to take your third string quarterback and bench your starting quarterback in the playoffs to let this guy have a hot arm or something and go through. But for whatever reason in hockey, we're willing to throw a potential hot goalie into the mix that may not have been playing for the last couple months, and there's been a ton of success in it. And you're right, like a hot goaltender is going to take you to the championship for sure.
Speaking of goalies, this is a great segue for us because like I said, Dave Kennedy is on fire. If people don't know, Dave is a member of the junior hockey advisor discussion group, and he's is turning into a very, very important part of just keeping that discussion group running and running well. But he's been working a little sneaky lately. He got a bunch of these goalie parents together, and they circled the wagons, and they started
Pitchforks outside of your house.
Yeah. And I had to, walk out, covering my eyes, pulling a hoodie over my face. And, my wife had to put me in the back seat of the car and throw a blanket over me so I could get out of the building. Goalie parents are flocking the area, but now there's a little uprising on the discussion group dealing with goalies, and that's great. The point was brought up, not subtly. It wasn't subtle at all. It was right out there that goalies don't get the same attention, and this is a positive thing, and that we need to spend a little more time with goalies and working through all of our members of the group that are of the goalie persuasion. So although a lot of the stuff is the same, they're right. We are going to address that. We just got some big things that we're working on right now. Mike and I have tackled a big project that we want to get done for Junior Hockey Advisor before midsummer, and that's going to take precedence. And then we will revamp, and maybe we can put it in some things before then for goalies, but we will attack and address the goalie issue and try to make that a better situation for goalies. I don't know why. I don't know why we're doing this, because goalie parents are going to be goalie parents no matter what information we give them. They do things. They do think just like goalies. They kind of run to their own beat, and they kind of see. I had this goalie, a Division I goalie that played for me a few years ago, and he had a habit of wanting to race out to the blue line to play pucks. And kid was a great goalie. Ended up playing 4 years of Division I college hockey, but he just wanted to always skate out and play pucks, the old Billy Smith style from the Islanders days. And we kept telling him, we don't need that. We don't need that. Just set the puck, let our D come back. We want to use the full ice to attack the other team. We don't want you to cut us off, because if you cut us off and play the puck up by the blue line, we're not prepared, and we don't have a system that's playing where our goalie is regrouping us. This isn't something that we do. And so he does it in the first period, and I, when things are quiet, I yell out on the ice, say, just let the puck go, set the puck behind the net, and let us take care of it from there. And he just nods and does it again. Then he does it again. So between periods, I try to talk to him, and he skates over the bench, drinks his water, and I'm like, I thought I was having a conversation with him. He was so focused in, he just drank his water and skated to the locker room. And I'm going nuts. Like, I'm talking to you, So my assistant coaches, pulled him aside, and he goes, who was talking to me? He just so focused on what he was doing that he couldn't hear me. He heard me in the locker room, though. I think he might have got the hint when we finally got in there. But goalies are goalies. What are you gonna say?
I was gonna say, when you were doing all that talking to him and he wasn't listening, I thought you were talking about your wife for a second, or any of your kids, because I think they do the same thing to you, don't they?
Why? Why do you have to bring that up? Why do you have to bring my personal life into this?
Well, I know there's a lot of people in your life that don't listen to you, so I'm probably on that list also.
You're probably the biggest offender of that, not anybody else. Now, I think the water bottle that was about 3 inches above his forehead when it exploded above his head in the locker room may have been the thing that got his final attention. And I'm not one of those coaches that goes in and throws things or kicks over trash cans or knocks sticks over, breaks sticks or anything like that. And I'm fairly calm in most situations, but that water bottle slipped very fast out of my hands. I apologize now. I feel great shame for that.
You're a goalie abuser.
Oh, okay. What else we got to talk about? We've been going for 50 minutes now.
Well,
questions are not coming in.
We got the USHL is going on right now. You got Fargo going against Dubuque. I think the series is 2-0 Fargo. They've kind of had their way so far.
They sure have.
That's a best of 5. So I think that I think they were in Fargo, so now everything goes back to Dubuque. So we'll see if they're able to fight their way out. But 2, again, perennial top USHL teams, great coaches, great GMs at both of those places. So, if you're watching that series, I saw some of the recaps, and it's like the level of like plays that these kids are making is unreal. Like, even if you go, I think on the USHL, they do like a quick recap of like the goals scored and things like that. I mean, some of the goals that are scored are unbelievable. It's that's good hockey, especially when you get to the 2 best teams in the league.
I would recommend you go watch, but I don't think you're going to get into either one of those buildings at this point.
Oh, they're packed. They are packed.
Yeah, they're just so it's a little bit more difficult to get in there unless you've got a connection or you try to get tickets online and they sell you some. But if you're in the area to see that the USHL final championship games, unbelievable experience. It's right up there, possibly even better than going to the Minnesota high school championships because it's unbelievable. The NAHL is great. I'm a firm believer in the NAHL. The USHL is the USHL because of all the components. It's the ownership groups, it's the coaching level, it's the players and the talent there, and it's their fan base and the cities they're working with because it's electric. I mean, their fan bases are extremely deep in both those cities, and it's just an unbelievable experience. Those you see in the NAHL, you can possibly go into a restaurant that a team frequents, and I'll use the example with Johnstown down in Pennsylvania, where Slapshot was filmed. There's a couple restaurants that the team frequents, the players and the team frequent. And so when you walk in the door, when the players walk in the door, the waiters, the bartenders, the management, the servers, they all, hey, how you doing? We got a table for you guys over there, that kind of thing. When you play for Dubuque or you play for anybody that's in the elite echelon of the USHL, half the town, the businesses are like that. You can be at the car wash there and they'll recognize you. So it's the closest thing to being a pro and probably better than a lot of the minor league pros, the AHL teams, because some of these cities, it's the only major sport they've got.
Right.
Where you look at AHL teams, there's multiple choices. Philly, it's Philly. If you know what I mean. I think I got the point. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay, good. Sometimes I don't know because we don't get a lot of questions coming in, but we did get one coming in. Okay, hang on. We'll go to this one first. No, Frank. No. That's all I'm going to say. Frank, we haven't seen you in a while. Glad to see you back, or you've just been quiet lately, but don't come on with that take. That's we don't need more. It's supposed to be a pyramid. The NAHL has done enough damage with expansion right now. Let's not tempt the USHL. I truly don't believe that they need more teams. It's a great product because the best of the best of the best are there, and you start adding teams, and I think you don't get that same feeling. So, oh, he's gonna come back and throw it at me. Okay, tell me to quiet up there. Okay, all right, let's get to Nancy. Nancy says, "Read this one.
You read this one. This one's too long for me,
and it's got big words, so I guess I have to read it. Not sure if it can be asked, but curious, as it's been mentioned to my son." 2006. If he signed up for a pre-draft camp with one team, he cannot attend another team's pre-draft camp. Okay, let's take that question first because she's got 2. Mike, what's the answer to that?
False. If you sign up for a pre-draft camp, I guess if it's on the same weekend, yeah, you can't attend another team's camp. But if it's on another weekend, you can attend as many camps as you want. I wouldn't recommend, going to every camp you can, but there's no restriction in any way to any of these pre-draft camps for any league or multiple leagues.
Yeah, the only thing I would say is, I can't attest because there's a lot of league rule changes in the NCDC from year to year. Sans the NCDC, every other league works just like Mike said. And it's probably true in the NCDC too, but I can't attest to that because, they, they've changed their draft process. They've changed their tender process. They've expanded to a whole nother Western division. There's so much going on there that I just don't know what the right answer is there. But if it's USHL pre-draft, NAHL pre-draft, I think you're pretty safe to say you can do them both. If you're in the Detroit area, there's 2 pre-drafts going on at the same time. It's been more than one kid that's attended pre-draft for more than one NAHL team, or even a combination of teams. There was a NAHL camp last year or the year before that there were 3 or 4 NAHL teams that kind of shared a pre-draft camp. And then there was another team on the other side of Detroit that was doing just their own, an all team doing it. And there were kids that were skating in both. So if you can do it, you can do it. That shouldn't be a problem at all. Second question, if given the opportunity to play out U18 AAA in Michigan, well, I can't read it on the screen. I got to read it over here. If given the opportunity to play U18 AAA in Michigan, fairly good team, or NA3 team in the South to start junior experience, which is better? Mike?
Well, I guess that would depend on what team, you would be playing on in the Detroit area and where they're moving their players onto. If they're moving their players onto tier 2 juniors, like a good chunk of their team, and you would kind of be in that realm, then staying and playing AAA for another year is the best option. If at the end of that year, your option is still going to be maybe the NA3 again, then getting a head start and playing in the NA3 and trying to work your way up to the NA from there, that might be the best option. So it kind of depends on where you're at in that situation to see what the better choice is. It also depends on what that NA3 program is, like how successful are they in moving guys to the NA or moving them onto the NCDC or higher levels on that decision as well. So you got to, like Jeff was talking about at the beginning of the episode, of reverse engineering some of these paths. If his goal is to play in the NA, look at your current AAA option and see how many of the kids over the last few years has that program moved into the NA. And then whatever that NA3 South team is that you're looking at, how many of the kids that played in that program have moved into the NA? And that kind of will give you, at least some unbiased factual information to kind of make your decision off of.
Yeah, I agree with what Mike's saying. I'm going to put a little bit more blunt on a few things, though. NA, once you make the jump to NA, unless you're on one of those, top 10% NA teams, it's very difficult to move into a NAHL position, even though you have the advantage over other tier 3 leagues. The advantage is there are going to be players off of every NA3 team that have opportunities because of the draft and being pulled up to the parent team or through the tender process, because every NA team has to tender players out of the NA3. They have to draft players out of the NA3, and it's a very common practice to pull players up if you have a tier 3 team underneath your NAHL team. That's not an advantage that the EHL or the USPHL has, or some of the lower level CGHL leagues. But a couple things. One is most of the good coaches in the when you say Michigan, I count anything in Lansing and anything in Grand Rapids as part of that Detroit market, because they kind of clump them together. That's your Big B's and your Fox programs, along with your Bell Tires and your Little Caesars and your Victory Hondas, CompuWare, all your program in the north side of town there, Oakland Junior Grizzlies. Yeah, so you got all those programs, quality U18 coaches in most of those programs, and most of them after your first year of U18, if you're ready for juniors, they're already on the phone before you know it, working to get you that right spot or to get you opportunities. I don't know of any. I talked to all these guys, well, not all of them. I talked to most of the guys out of that market that are U18 coaches, and between Mike and I, I'm sure we cover them all. These guys are there trying to promote players and get them to the next level. So they're going to come and pull you aside and say, hey, yeah, you can stay here, but why? Why would you stay next year? You can play in the AJ, you can play in the CCHL, or maybe they're telling you, hey, look, there's NAHL interest in you. You really should, go play in the NAHL, and here's the teams that you should be looking at or talking to. But going back for that second year, it's that same thing that Mike was talking about earlier in the broadcast, and that is stay in a second year at U18 where now you're the veteran on the team. You're probably in a, because the numbers, maybe your first year players that, when first year U18, when you're in your first year, there's 10 of you that are that, what were you, 06? Is that what you said you are? Yeah, 06. And maybe that goes down to 3 to 6 kids for that second year. If that's the case, you're going to have more of a leadership role. You're going to have more responsibility on the team. You're going to have a bigger, probably a bigger chunk of special team time, getting those minutes at the end of the game that are real, tight games. All those things happen, and those are the areas that you get noticed at. People, a scout comes to watch a game. He loves that last minute to see who's doing what in the last minute. He loves watching the power play to see who steps up and does something good in those crucial moments of the game. And that's what you get in that second year. Just like when Mike was talking about earlier, playing down a level sometimes, playing U18 double or AAA is not a step down from going to juniors. It's just the step before juniors. So if you can take advantage of that second year, I'd talk to your coach and just say, hey, what do you think? Look at Mike's point about what your program does year after year after year is so important. If you're in a program at U18 where the coach is just out to lunch and is not putting any effort into getting you guys to the next level, maybe it is time to move on. But I really hate to say that because I firmly believe that playing U18 is going to open more doors for the majority of players statistically than playing NA3 or playing any other level of tier 3, unless you're on that magic team, one of the top teams that can actually coach you and produce you to the next level. And that's just rare in any tier 3 level. And Mike, I'll give you a rebuttal on that. You get the final rebuttal because I know, you and I always don't see completely on this. If you want to address that, go ahead.
Well, I would just say that the other thing that we haven't talked about that you have to look at is being in 06. If you play another year of AAA hockey, when you finally get to juniors, you're going to have 2 years of eligibility left. If you go there now, you're going to have 3 years to play junior. So to start that climb, you're going to have 3 years to do it. If, again, if you're going to be a top player for, a really good program at the AAA level, then opening doors into the NAHL or a tier 2 option, could be NCDC or whatever, is going to be highly likely. Like, if you're in that role next year, that's where that, is going to kind of put you. Getting into tier 2 should be a lot more of a realistic approach. If you think like I'm going to be kind of a fourth, third, maybe second liner at best, and kind of get lost in the shuffle or have, more players step up on my team than what I'm able to contribute, you're probably still looking at tier 3 juniors when you get to this point of the year next year. So if that would be where you would fall, getting a head start playing junior hockey now and starting that climb might be the better option. So it's hard to say without enough of the information to really, guide you on that. But that's kind of some general situations that, we can kind of paint for you.
Well said. Well said. Okay, so we covered goalies. We covered the playoffs with the USHL. I think we did everything. Not a big night for questions, even though we've got a fairly large audience going on. Last chance, I just posted that up there. If there's any more questions, give us a shout. We'd love to see the question and try to address anything else. Thank you so much. First of all, that was a really well thought out situation, Nancy. I appreciate putting that up there.
I like that.
Thank you for your questions. And let's see, Nancy came back and said, if I can scroll down to what Nancy said, I think she just gave us a thumbs up. I can't really see it. Let's see if I can. Oh, there it is.
Perfect.
Very good. I'm glad that helped. you had to listen to Mike to get to what I said, but that's okay. I'm glad you dealt with listening to him to get to the real information. So,
You just
all
wanted
right.
to share that you connect with the Detroit area coaches. That's the only thing that you wanted to get out there from what you were talking.
Oh, you never know what GM of a USHL program is watching and wants to know that I'm connected and is ready to take the Colson leap. So
Hey, it's
you
likely
never
that
know.
the two teams in the championship right now, those GMs are listening in or following at some point. So, you never
They
know.
do. They do. And that's yeah. For those of you who don't know, uh, of the 20,000 something people that will eventually look at these broadcasts, and most of it comes through Facebook, YouTube. We're still trying to build that and crack the nut on YouTube. We're at that point now where we're getting a little bit of momentum on YouTube, but we get thousands of views of the Facebook live streams that we do. It's the same one, but they're just broadcast to Facebook. Our group includes uh, XNHL coaches, GMs. There's a ton of people in the NAHL that you won't always see pop up. Some of the most prominent family advisors, not financial advisors, family advisors will chime in. Sometimes you got to be careful if you're a parent on this and you're throwing out some of your opinions, because some of the people that get in there, it was a few weeks ago. The example was we were talking about elite prospects, and somebody was trying to give their expert opinion on it, and the person that they were countering was the president of Elite Prospects. So you just never know who's in this group. We've got coaches from every league, general managers from every league, ownership, and I'm talking BCHL, CGHL, USHL, NAHL. They're all involved in this, everything on the East Coast too. So it's kind of fun. Mike and I kind of chuckle sometimes when you're like, do they know that person is who they are?
Right.
Because you'd probably change the way you were stating your facts if you knew the person you're going up against is like literally the worldwide expert in whatever you're arguing about, and that happens quite a bit. But that's so keep that in mind when you're on the groups, that a lot of the people that are they're giving their opinions may not tell you their title, they might not tell you who they're affiliated with, but they sometimes carry a big bag of knowledge with them, and that's why they're on there trying to help you guys figure this whole thing out. So we've got an hour. I think that's long enough. Mike, any closing statements from you?
I don't think so. Hopefully, everyone that's watching and everything follows these junior hockey series, because in my opinion, the best way to get to know a league is to watch it. So that could help you guys kind of see what that caliber is like and compare it to maybe your kids and where they're at with things or where they need to get to and whatnot. Because it's honestly, it's great hockey. This is the best time of year to watch. And if you don't have the chance to see it live, you can always see it through, I think USHL uses Flow TV, Flow Hockey, or whatever it's called. And the NA's got their own service that I'm sure you can get for a weekend or whatever it is, just like you can with the other. Tune in. It's great hockey to watch.
What you just threw out a phrase that I think is only a Michigan phrase. What is a whatnot?
I don't know.
What the hell does that mean?
Whatnot.
What does that mean?
I don't know what it means.
You just said it.
I know. I know how to apply it, but I don't know what it means.
No, and whatnot.
That's what it means.
That is
Whatnot.
that is such a Michigan phrase, and that's, you only hear that with guys that wear their hats backwards in their 40s from Michigan.
I'm
like, surprised.
You ever seen the Seinfeld episode when George is making sandwiches and he turns his hat backwards so he can be like the guy that does the rock climbing and everything else?
I know a lot of Seinfeld episodes. I missed that one.
Uh,
Not a George fan. I can quote a lot of the Kramer episodes, but George was not my favorite character on there at all.
Well, if you watch Seinfeld enough, all the characters are in all the episodes, and they have 3 separate storylines that they follow in each episode. So
that's very true. Okay, that's it, folks. Hope everybody has a great week. It's a great week for hockey if you're a junior hockey fan. So take advantage of it. Let us know your experiences. Put them in the notes. Start a thread on the discussion group talking about one of the games. We'd love to see it. Interact. Like us if you can. Please go to our YouTube channel, Junior Hockey Advisor, and make sure you like and follow us there too. We've finally cracked that 1,000, and now it seems like that floodgates open, and a couple hundred people joined right after that. So we're starting to move that ball too, but we sure could use your help there. Let your friends know. Invite other people to get involved with the group and make this family even bigger. Would love to see that. And have a great night, everybody. And hopefully next week, when Mike and I are on here, we'll be all bloodshot eyes and looking like we hadn't slept in 48 hours because we just won a national title. So we wish the other three teams luck, but very rarely do you hear us talk about the team, in specific terms. But this is Brahma land tonight, baby. Let's go Lone Star. Let's have a great weekend, and hopefully next week we're celebrating a championship. You think we can get the trophy on the show?
Yeah, I do.
I think so too.
Hopefully
we have a trophy.
We got to win it first.
Okay. Everybody take care. Have a great night.